standing orders. Has anybody read that document? Am I the only one who's read that document? Okay. Basically, that is a dictation or a dictate from local government New Zealand or central government telling our mayor and our councillors how the council meetings must run. Okay, and effectively it puts our current mayor, Dan Gordon, in a position where he is the authority in the meetings. He'll let you speak, providing you've applied for at least 2 days prior to a meeting for a deputation, or you've, at one of the long-term plan meetings or short-term plan meetings, or at another community consultation meeting. He'll explain to you that he might or might not allow you to speak. Okay, it's not as open and as transparent as I thought local government was prior to a couple of years ago. On that point, did anybody read the One News Chief Ombudsman Peter Boshear's document or page that's come out in the last couple of days? Did anybody manage to have a wee look at this? There's a couple of people that have. Yeah, fantastic. Effectively, the Ombudsman says local councils' fears of looking stupid when asking silly questions in public shouldn't be a valid reason to hold council workshops in secret. So there's been a potential number of workshops that our Waimakariri Council, because they're one of the 8 councils named in this document, where potentially, and I'm not saying because I haven't done any further digging into this document, where potentially they've had some closed meetings, closed workshops that could have been or should have been open to public, open to the public. So yeah, it's something that we can post if you want to read, and we can put out through our emails. Okay, interesting statements there from the Chief Ombudsman. Righty ho. Anybody's rates gone up recently? Hands up if your rates have gone up recently. Yeah, and it's quite extravagantly so as well. You're going to learn a lot tonight about the local government funding agency. Hands up if you've heard of that before. Okay, there's a, oh yeah, good few of people in here that have. You're going to learn a lot more about that. Did you know what our operating expenditure is here in the Waimakariri? So our operating expenditure is 137 million, okay? About 65%, I forget it is, I think about $87,000 of that, sorry, $87 million of that 137 million comes from our rates, okay? That's for our Waimakariri District Council to operate. So about purely just our rates provides about $87 million of that operating costs. The rest of it, comes from fees and charges, subsidies and other incomes that we provide, the council, such as dog registration fees, etc., etc. Okay. I've mentioned the council orders. You can apply for a deputation if there's something you want to speak about. So I guess we're here tonight. I guess number one is yes to educate you, but also look, it's time to get involved. If you've got a wee bit of time, it's really important that we get involved to challenge and to let our council know that we are concerned about their extravagant spending. I'm lucky enough tomorrow to speak in Christchurch, the Christchurch City Council at the Greater Christchurch Spatial Planning consultation meeting. So I'm speaking against 6 potential initiatives that the Greater Christchurch Network, that's Selwyn, Christchurch and Waimakariri, are looking at even spending more money and putting, us further into debt through our rates. So I'm going to be challenging them. Look, you've got some great ideas here, but I have very real concerns for my fellow ratepayers. How is this going to be funded? And I'm quite concerned. Sorry. I'm speaking at 3 o'clock tomorrow in Christchurch. I don't know what time the hearings are going to start, and I don't know what time the hearings finish. But they've been going for several days. Yeah, it's I'm having to walk out of work and lose several hours work pay for it. But I'm prepared to stand up and speak out against this incredible debt that we are facing, because yeah, you'll soon realise, you know, how much debt we are facing. And this is council debt. This is on top of and above government debt. Okay. So we've spoken debt there. Just moving on. Every time I have a deputation or I speak at the council, I state this back to them. They say, we'll keep you informed. We'll take responsibility. We'll work with you and each other. We'll do better every day. We'll act with integrity, honesty and trust. Yet the Chief Ombudsman is doing reports into them and their lack of transparency, because they're hiding behind some silly questions, we're told. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Righty-ho, I've spoken for long enough. I'm going to welcome our first speaker, Stephen. Stephen, give him a warm hand, please.
Yeah, that's actually the result of all the OIAs have been doing, which, for anyone who doesn't know, an Official Information Act request. So basically, if it's something you're not too sure about the council, and that, put an Official Information Act request to them and ask for the answer. And that's the results of what I've asked so far. One of them is on properties, and the other one's on the Local Government Funding Agency. That one there is the Local Government Funding Agency. You can probably tell I'm not used to doing this. Right, we'll get straight into it, so I usually come right after a few minutes. Right, the Waimak District Council is a business, and they actually claim to be a business. It's all through all their OIAs as part of running a business. So businesses are bound by commerce and contract law. That's one of the business numbers in that for the Waimak District Council, so that's one of the ones they trade under. That's also the Duns and Bradstreet one as well. So those numbers there are actually held on the New York Stock Exchange. So that's where you know, our Waimak District Council's been traded as a company. They say they're using it for the LGFA, and they're just to set that up, and the numbers been in existence a bit earlier. Now, every contract must have options to accept, decline and negotiate, because obviously we're dealing with a company. They've got to put forward to us an offer, and we choose whether to accept it, decline it or negotiate it. At the moment I don't see any of those options apart from we've got to accept. Right, so now what I'm...
When you say we, you're meaning ratepayers?
Sorry, I mean Waimak District, but as you'll soon tell, it's you'll soon realise it's actually more than just the Waimak, it's the whole country. So I'll bring you into that shortly. I'll wait for the surprise for you. Now, same as contract law, what I'm trying to look at is, have we actually been told about the implications of what's happening? So if they're going to go away and do a deal, have we actually been told fully what's at stake? I haven't seen any of this. So with that in mind, with the contract is null and void and fraudulent if you detect that something's not 100% right for it and you were never told about it. So I'll bring you into that very shortly. There's a maximum of law. Fraud cancels everything it touches, which is fraud vitiates contract. So you look under that contract law, it's 8 points to contract. Now the Waimak District Council has joined the Local Government Funding Agency. The majority of councils, there's 30 of them have joined so far, there's only 3 that haven't opted for this. They've joined in. Basically the Local Government Funding Agency is the approved means that they actually bring their loans in from. So they used to go to the banks and put in a loan for each one. So each one was on a case-by-case basis. That's been changed. It came in 2011 when it first got started, 2012 when they first started trading. What they're doing now is they go to the approved loaning mechanism, which is the Local Government Funding Agency, and they borrow the money from there. So you can imagine we're going to one place only, and the majority of the loaning has to come from there. Now councils become shareholders in the scheme. You've got the option of actually becoming a shareholder. Now the Waimak District Council is actually a shareholder. There's implications to that, which I'll bring you into very shortly. Which is the next line. Any council that borrows 20 million or more must become a guarantor. Now what does a guarantor actually mean? So they become a guarantor. Guarantor to who? Is it a guarantor to our loans? Or is it more?
Everybody's loans.
Guarantor to account for loans.
I think you're starting to work it out now already. So basically, if you're becoming a shareholder, and I can show all this, all the information I've got is in those folders, and 3 attempts to do it through Official Information Act request. 3 times I've asked the same questions, and 3 times the answers have moved ever so slightly. One of them was the one at the end where I asked for the approval from the ratepayers. It never came out to us. Right, a guarantor is responsible for payments outside of the district in the event that a member district cannot meet the relevant payment obligations. When you try to find something in a hurry. It actually states that they become shareholders, and the only reason was to save some percentage points. So the option of actually saving some money on interest put us in greater risk. Now, the guarantor is responsible for payments outside of the district in the event the member district cannot meet its relevant payment obligations. Now, if you've been watching the news lately, you'll see that both Auckland and Wellington have said basically the rates are getting unsustainable, and they're looking at how they're going to fund it. I think there's 4 councils in particular, Wellington, are looking at breaking ranks and actually coming forward and saying what's happening. They've overcommitted to what they're doing, which means the only way they can fund it is by putting the rates up. Auckland we already knew was in the down the Googler basically for a while, but Phil Major's just come out recently and said 18% pay rate increase next year for Christchurch City, and that's only just to try and make it work. So when you start looking at 18%, that's only for the Christchurch City Council. What about the ECAM portion? So if you actually look at your own rate increases over the last 10 years, or even go back 3 years, you'll notice they're all ramping up. Now this is the thing, with the shareholders, 20% is actually, 20% is the Crown's a shareholder, and the rest is broken up between the councils that have actually taken shares or more than $20 million worth of debt. However, there's no Crown guarantee. So in other words, they've got the shares, but the moment it goes belly up, they're not guarantees for it at all. Like I said, this is all on the paperwork, so it's all shown there. You can hop on the local government funding agency website as well, and you can start finding stuff there. A lot of it's buried. Now, LGFA is also exempt from the anti-money laundering legislation, which you got to think every time you want to go to the bank and draw out 10 grand, you got to do paperwork now. They can draw out 10 million with no paperwork.
It's a slush fund.
Yeah, that's a polite way of putting it. But the thing is, it's not multiple. It's not just one lot of 10 million. It's multiple lots. Now, this is what I was getting to before about my OIAs. I've got 3 of them there. Each one, I've asked for the public whether they were adequately informed whether it was going to happen. Each time they've come back and said, oh, it's in the long-term plan, or oh, it's here and here. But when you look at the long-term plan, it actually says they're looking at using something, and then they're using something. So how can there be consultation unless you actually know what it is, with indicating where the funding is going to come from? So they've sort of told us in a way, but we haven't actually cottoned on to what it is. And obviously we've trusted people to make these decisions for us. Now the risks and benefits, I've already sort of told you the main risks in that is we're guarantors to a scheme now. Has anybody got any idea how much debt that is?
Billions.
Does anybody actually know how much debt the Waimea District Council's in? Yeah, you ones already know. Anybody else? I know you want to ask. 180 million. That's just the Waimea District Council, 180 million. The last OIA request I got from them, it's all the bonds listed, 180 million. Now, this is the one that sort of got me started on this wee journey. The Waimea District Council, in my opinion, has lost the way as far as providing core duties. Our roads are getting repaired, but we're having to pay for them over and above all this other stuff that's happening. So the core duties are getting ignored. If you went to the annual plan where they actually submitted it and accepted it, there was a request came in at the last minute for $220,000 worth of funding to fix the potholes. So that's why the rates went from 5.97 to 6.24%, or as somebody put it, a cup of coffee. That was to fix potholes. Those potholes should have been in there, not cycleways and all that stuff. They should be down as luxuries, but the actual potholes, yeah, core services. So trying to sum that up easily, they are there to look after our money, to look after everything they've paid for, but it appears that it's not the case. There's stuff that's happening outside that scene. Now, from here, they've been able, from the Official Information Act request, they've been unable to prove when and how the ratepayers agreed, approved and accepted joining the local government funding agency. I never knew anything about this. And it was only for Adrian actually brought it up, and also her being an accountant, she was looking at, you know, where are they using the money. And I thought to myself, well, actually, where are they getting the money from? Because when you start looking deeper than that, it doesn't matter how they're using the money, but where's that money, where's that income stream coming from? The main thing is, do they ask any of yous? Does anybody actually know what it is, or actually got a grasp of what I'm actually trying to say here? You're guarantees to a big scheme out there, and it's a lot more money than what you think. Just to drive it home, anybody know how much a billion is? 1,000 million. And currently that LGFA debt is sitting at 14 billion. Now that's only the bit that I know about, because obviously Three Waters was hooked into that as well. Now National's going to repeal that, isn't it? So somebody's bought a lot of stuff basically, and it's, don't know how they can explain that one really. I think they pushed it up well over the 14 billion, but yeah.
We've got to wait for National to do it. I don't believe it will happen.
Well, they changed it from repeal to repeal and replace.
Yeah.
Well, replace doesn't mean much, does it? Yeah. So I'm not even going down that one. I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing here, and try to get people, or yeah, just try to educate people to what I'm actually finding, and actually, hopefully, you all start taking responsibility for yourselves. And I'm starting to sound like a teacher here now. Sorry, Joe. He's rubbing off on me a wee bit. But yeah, the main reason why I'm doing all this is the only reason my kids are going to have a life to live up to is if we start providing for it now. If we don't, they're not going to know any better. You know, their idea of going to school now is which credit card's best. That's what they teach them in maths. Which credit card, which one gives the best rewards? Back in my day, you didn't even know about a credit card. You had $10, you made $10 last. You didn't have $10, you asked mum and dad. And obviously you had to pay them back, and sometimes they let you out, but sometimes they wouldn't, but you sort of learned. Now, the void answers the specific questions regarding interest rates and the LGFA loans. They have and they haven't. It's an interesting one, because what they've done is they've posted the bond rates. Now, the bond rates are a 90-day floating rate. Now, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we're going into a bit of a recession at the moment. Interest rates are starting to go back up. What's going to happen to those bond rates? So that interest we're paying at the moment is going to be quite flexible. Yeah, so I tried to sum that up nice and easy there. But yeah, the thing is they're trying to hedge it by putting it into different funds at different rates to cover the risk. At the end of the day, there's that risk, and the risk is quite massive. Maximum, yeah, one council reports the maximum borrowing will be 99,000. Also, I'm sorry. Even I get caught up with all these figures. It's just too many zeros after the time. They also state they've already borrowed 180 million. Got that right there, Tom. That's double what they've told us. Now the catch is when you actually go to a public meeting, there's mentions about paying off a loan and starting up a new loan. To me that sounds like a credit card when you're just paying the minimum payment and keeping that minimum payment going, keeping that card going. So how can you rise from 75 million or 55 million to 180 million and be projected to go to 320 million by 2030? So it's bad at the moment, it's going to get worse. I've also asked through the OIOs, Official Information Act requests, who the shareholders and the stakeholders are. Because my main concern was, if they're using my money for something, surely I'm entitled to know where it's being used. But they won't tell me about it is where the stakeholders are. The shareholders, like I said, is the Crown is 20%, and the other councils that have borrowed into it, with the exception of 3, I think Dunedin's one of them, Chatham Islands, and I think there's one other one down south, haven't signed into this. They're all shareholders, but who's the stakeholders? Now, each answer I've got back from them, I keep on saying it's up to me to go to the local government funding agency and ask them myself. So they take my money, then I've also got to go ask where somebody else is using it. report telling us that the collateral, our rate payments being used as collateral. So all these interest payments, when you look at the general value or the GB portion, most of that's been attributed out to interest payments. So when you see that part go up and your property price go up, that's where that money's going as well. If they default, this is the bit I'm trying to get people to grasp, and it's really quite simple. If they default, we stand to lose everything because we're not aware of it. If we're aware of it, what happens then? If they signed us into a contract and we weren't aware of the full penalties or obligations or limitations, are we actually responsible for it?
No.
This is the correct answer I'm hearing from a lot of people. Because the way I see it, I did not give them permission to use my money outside the district. And by entering into the guarantee scheme, and I've got the minutes to report there, I'll find them in a minute because it's doing my head in there because it's at the back of my head. The council report actually clearly states there, the pros and cons of each one. Obviously this they discuss between themselves. There should have been a blanket letter going out to all of us. Never happened. So at the moment, the way it stands on people not being aware, they'll just keep on raising rates till you can't afford it. Then what happens after that?
Take the property.
Well, they'll try, because under the local government, I've got that bit here. I'll even put the glasses on for it. Local Government Rating Act 2002, Constitutional Principles. The rating of land is a non-arbitrary, coercive tax. Ultimately, defaulting ratepayers can lose their property. It is important, therefore, that policies and processes associated with all aspects of rating are subject to transparency and accountability. Do you think they're achieving that at the moment? No. So I'm not trying to incite a mob or anything like that. I'm just trying to get you to understand that what they're saying and what they're doing are two slightly different paths. Now, from that, has anybody actually, any of the councillors actually spoken to their members out there about this? No. I'm assuming nobody has. And more importantly, if anything goes wrong, what happens? I'll just quote that one straight from the piece of paper, but there it is in black and white again. So without keeping us in the picture and that we're liable now for that, sure they're not telling us openly. Right, here's some figures now, because this would actually start cementing at home with it. As of March 2015, LGFA loans totaled 25 million. In 8 years, it's gone to $180 million. That's 8 years. Now obviously I've started doing some digging on a lot of that, trying to work out where the money's going, and I've got some good examples there. One off the top of my head is Main Stadium. When I asked them what they said the LGFA funding on that was 16.7 million. So that's Main Stadium, if anyone knows where it is, that's Coldstream Road. 16.7 million is what they said it costs them through the LGFA. Me being me, sorry, I'm just a bit of pain in the neck sometimes. I did an OIA, Official Information Act request on the Main Stadium. That came through at 31 million. So the 14 million out straight away, just on that one article alone. Now obviously what have we got to show for it? We've still got potholes, we've still got a big borrow just to get another 200,000 to fix potholes. Now as a guarantor to all other LGFA members of the scheme was the overall total of that debt. That's what it is. That's when we were looking into it. It was 14 billion. We haven't actually looked into it any deeper since then, so I'll probably need to raise this one again and see what's gone up to, because I think they're signalling another lending round, which, yeah, not good. So that number's just going to keep going north. Just like the credit card, if you only pay the minimum payment, next month the minimum payment's twice the amount, you've still got twice the amount sitting on the credit card. You're never going to get back down to zero. Now the whole thing is the council is hell-bent on running on debt. Why? If you can't afford it, you don't buy it. You know, the earthquake's been and gone. You know, water's all been taken care of. Some of the projects they've put through in that, you know, the money's being used, so why are we doing all this other stuff? And that's where, you know, Joe pointed out before about the ombudsman. These workshops they're running, the decisions have been made behind closed doors on those as well. So when you actually look at some of Yeah, well, just a good example is the cycleway one at Peck and Save. At the workshop there, the majority of people there said no, but it got pushed through as a survey and the feedback was mostly an approval, and that was only by a slim margin. For that reason, another $400,000 going through on rates to make another cycleway parallel to the other cycleway. Now that cycleway that's running parallel to the existing cycleway, sorry, I've stopped taking the mickey out of this because it's just so funny. That cycleway that's running in parallel with the other cycleway, it was basically wasn't their preferred option because they already said it wasn't the most prettiest or the safest, so now they want to do the other one. Why did they do the first one to start off with? Now the catch is they're also not going to return all the car parks they stole from the first one. They're going to steal car parks from the other one. And Peck and Saves actually raises an issue with them, so I've got a wee bit of background information on it, but they've also turned around and said it's a health and safety risk. But obviously the railroad gets through. So community board said no, and it got overturned at the council meeting. And they said no way, it's going through regardless. Now a lot of that is money being waved in front of people's eyes, or the carrot dangled in front of their nose. Because Waka Tahi will actually give them like 2/3 of the money. We've still got to pay for 1/3 of the money. So when you start looking at how much money's been spent on projects, because they think they're getting the free money, which obviously comes out of the other pocket, because you're running two wallets at the moment. You've got the tax one and you've got the rates one. So if they don't take it from one, they take it from the other. So either way, you're funding it. And we still said no. Now what I've found out too is with all the QVs, or your QVs or CVs, whatever they want to call them now, you've got a portion of your tax down that's rated against your capital value. I'm assuming everybody here's capital value jumped quite a bit. Yeah. Seems good as far as insurance goes and all that, until you realise how much money actually goes on the tax take of it. That money's basically being assigned to the operating costs. So it's not related to all your not the development funds, your roading fund, your drainage and all that, but it's to the overheads and the loan funding. Now the QVs, we bit of digging on those as well and found out a lot of them. I'll just go through these, making a lot of sense and jumping into myself. To break it down simply, if a property sells for a higher QV, or higher than QV, what it does is it drags the properties up in the area around, because the average price raises. So for instance, if my property is worth say 2 million, and the one beside me is worth $1 million, the GV for that area will be 1.5 million, I'll take the average. If they can push one of those up to 2 million, and another one up to 4 million, all of a sudden you've jumped between 2 and 4, so what's that? It's 5 million, isn't it? 3 million.
No, 3.
So 3 million. So now you've got tax take down on 3 million. Now what I'm finding here is under properties I'm looking at, which is this other folder here. It's hard, I'm trying to make it nice and simple because obviously my brain gets a bit carried away sometimes. Each one of those is properties that I've looked into. So there's 6 of them. I've actually got more on the go at the moment. I got to the stage where I was actually getting frustrated, finding the properties, then actually investigating each one and waiting for the information to come back. So I did a blanket order, said how many properties does the council own? Anybody want to hazard a guess how many council properties? Not you. Rough idea, stab in the dark?
1,000?
You're close. Just under 900 properties. Now you think, okay, that big deal, that means all the parks and all that sort of stuff, but then you start looking at what some of the properties are. I actually got a property list out of them and started breaking it down. There's farms in there, there's all sorts of stuff. Red zone land, a good example, 151 Raven Key, which is just down here, I think I remember rightly. I think that's sitting, I'm going to find that piece of paper after all.
A fortune?
Well, it wasn't when people got basically told to get off their properties because it was worthless, was it? Right, 151 Raven Key, 2.9 hectares. GV in 2019 was 3.82 million. The GV for 2022, 5.3 either. So the rate bill on that one is 11,000. It's $11,000 associated with rates on that property, which the council paid. No. Go and by the Official Information Act. They said the council's responsible for the rates. So you can understand now why I'm trying to take it seriously, but sometimes you just got to look and laugh. So yeah, basically we're doing that. I might as well go into that one now because there's a wee sideline. So the cube, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 properties. So it's got number 1 Jolly Street, number 5 Jones Street, 62 Charles Street, number 2 Askeaton Drive, number 10 Hall Street, number 7 Hall Street, 32 Felwick Drive, and 151 Raven Key. Now they've got, I didn't actually put down their total areas, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, about 18 hectares in total. That's got a value now of 13.52 million. And associated with that is $39,678 in rates. Yeah, that's just on those red zone ones. Now, that information that I just told you, hop onto the Waimea District Council website, type in rate finder, and you'll find it all there. Like I said, they gave me the list and I started going through the list and it got depressing. You know, I started finding all these properties and what the rates were, and also went on to another couple of websites and actually checked to see what the valuations were. And the jump, like I said, 3.5?
Why would they do that?
3.8 to 5.35. If you're loaning money, do you want to make sure you're looking pretty good?
As a guarantor to go to us.
Well, doesn't it? Well, that's what my suspicion is. By upping the rates or the value of your properties, you can take more GV, which gives you more. Well, it makes you look better as far as paying your rates, doesn't it? If you try selling the red zone property for 5.5 million, are you actually going to achieve 5.5? They can buy my place if they want.
Hey, they're doing what Trump's been doing. It's exactly what Trump did all over the states. And now he's going to jail for it.
Yeah, I haven't actually followed what's happening over there, so.
Oh, he's done it rampantly. All through New
I know
York,
the whole
Florida.
world seems to have a few problems at the moment, so. Yep.
Elevated his values.
A lot of the houses that were purchased that are empty, and one in particular is 65 or 65A Woodend Rangiora Road. There's always someone there maintaining it. I've been watching it lately, and there's people inside, there's people outside, so we're paying for that as well.
Righto, here's a chance to do an official information act request. Since they've purchased that property, because I know for a fact they have bought it, because I've got that on me. Yeah, I've got that on my list. So I also know what they paid for it. 780,000 is what the GV was. They paid 880,000, which is not bad. It's only 100,000 over. But well, no, trust me when I say it's not bad compared to some of the other ones, and I've got them all there, and I can tell you a few in a minute. But when you look at that and work on the grounds that it's sitting vacant, where's the return come back of it? And that one was borrowed through the LGFA funding as well. So we're now paying the interest rates on that as well. Just like the duck bond. I don't know if anyone knows what the duck bond is.
It's legend banking, house
That's-
banking.
Well, the duck bond is 40 Lineside Road, so yeah.
What's the idea of buying all these properties? What are they doing?
Land banking.
According to the Official Information Act requests I'm getting back from them, it is all part of their long-term plan or short-term plans, and they're basically part of their business model gives them the right to purchase properties without consulting with us to work towards the plan. Now, at which stage did we actually change from that's my sewer line, that's my water line, that's my road, look after them please. You know, when are we going to, why did they start running off and working out where the building's going to go? There has to be a certain proportion of you know, town planning in that, but are we supposed to be funding it?
Is the Waimea Council selling red zone? Right, okay, sorry, is Kaiapoi selling red zone?
Correct, should be us. Because we voted them in. And I mean that with all respect, because I don't think half the guys actually realise what's actually happening. It's been so subtle how it's happened. They think they're going in there, but all it is just a token gesture. Basically, the council, the tail's actually wagging the dog's breath, the easiest way to describe it. And when you see, like, you know, how the hell did we get to $180 million worth of debt? And adding to it, that number should be coming down. Now, ironically, that cycle I was just telling you about before, when they voted on it, it got right to the end of that meeting, this community board meeting, and they just agreed to pay all this money basically on stop signs and all that, even though there was long debates about it and people didn't want it. They turned around and said, they went around the room and asked all the community board members, you know, what was their feedback from the public and that. Two items stood out. One was an unprecedented demand for food banks. So something's happening there where there's an unprecedented demand for food banks. And the other one was businesses struggling. Not all businesses, but most of them. So I'll let you just read between the lines on that one as well. So most businesses suffering. So we probably need to look and see who's all shareholders in there, which ones are doing all right, which ones aren't. Like I said, this is just questions you need to ask. So I haven't got any proof on that because I haven't looked that deep. Because obviously I'm been so tied up with this LGFA stuff and just sort of, I've got my head pretty much around it now, and the properties one as well.
Well, I just, you know, it makes sense to me. It's simple. It's a company, but it's not your company. If we're not shareholders of the council is a private business operating in business. And we can sit here and do and say what we like, but it means nothing because it's a privately owned business, whether it's government or not. It's a company. So
that's what it's looking like, isn't it?
well, that's what it is.
And that's why I'd like people just to go away and actually sort of think about what's actually happening, where it's all going. I'll go through the rest of this as well. There's a wee bit more stuff with that because it's all smoke and mirrors, all of it. Now, under the guise of long-term planning. Now, there's some properties for you to look at. They're all in the folder there, so if you want the proof, it's all there. Now, I've got my original question there, and I've also got their answer. So, if I'm telling you rubbish, it's somebody's told me rubbish, and that rubbish has come from somebody. Does that make sense? Because for me to make that up and have it on Waimea District Council letterhead, you know, I'm putting my neck on the line on that one. This is the first one that kicked it all off for me. It was 132 Percival Street. So Percival Street, where Victoria Park is, across the road from that is a blank section.
Used to be Freemasons.
The ex-Freemasons Hall. Yep, because that got demolished. The fence is still there, the gate's gone, we don't know what happened to the gate. But yeah, there's a wee bit of story to that one, and you'll have trouble trying to get your head around. Well, I looked at it and I just about laughed. GV on it in 2019 was 291,000. There was a debate on the council about tar sealing it. I didn't know at that stage we bought it. I say we bought it because we bought it. They were having a debate about spending up to $30,000 to put a temporary surface down for a car park. It got to half time at the meeting, and I thought, right, I'll talk to one of the councillors. I stop bailing up. I'll speak to one of the councillors. I said, right, have you actually run it past the owner? He turned around and said, well, no, we own it. Well, what do you mean we own it? He said, well, we bought it. Okay, well, how much do we pay for it? He said, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. He came back and he said, oh, yeah, no, we paid at that stage he said, we paid $750,000 for it. Well, what? Can't be worth that much. And he said, oh, no, it was a bargain. Well, that's great, it wasn't my money, so, well, not his money, sorry. So I thought, right, went away and had a look at it. Now, partner hopped online and started digging for it, and she found it straight away. The price was actually $770,500. That was GST inclusive, so I opened up an official information act request on that one. That's the first one that actually started me on this little track. I got the answers back on it. There was no GV, so it was done as agreed price. The vendor actually approached them about buying it. So that price was actually negotiated between the council and the vendor with no valuation or anything like that. So I asked them, how does that work? And they said, oh, we bought it off GV. And from that I actually went online and had a look. The GV was actually struck in July, but they purchased that in April. So the GV was 291,000. They told me they bought it off GV, and the GV shows as 770,000 after the fact. And I thought, okay, righto, I'll keep on looking because obviously the information they're giving me, I'm letting them give it to me. So I asked, righto, under whose authority did you do it? And they went back to one of their surveys. So I've got the information back on the survey. Now this was purchased in 2022, the start of. The survey they used was the end of 2022. I've got it all there. So they bought a property at the start of 2022 using a survey from the end of 2022.
Yeah, lies and just see.
What did the survey say?
The survey, 772 participants, Countdown Kaiapoi, their staff were asked, sporting clubs were asked. It was about all the green zones and all this stuff. So it was a targeted survey. The questions were weighted. So anything like very disappointed was a 1. Highly impressed was a 4. And anybody that contacted the council was exempt because they didn't want to get survey blowout. Now, do you normally ring the council to say you did a smashing job, or can you sort something out? So yeah, so it was scary ground because that survey was actually discussed in one of the council meetings, and one of the councils actually brought up, so how did we actually get 84% approval rating? Because they only got something like about 18% for the actual approval for the council board of it. So the council services part, you know, the actual council, their score was right down, but somehow magically morphed up to 84%. So you can sort of, and this is what I'm saying about that cycle weight. When you got 26 that were generally in favour and 22 that were against, then you got 2 that sent in blank forms. They used the 26 that were generally in favour to pass that across. And when you ask them about the survey, the workshop, which I've done, I've actually sent an official information act request on that. Or no, somebody has done on behalf. What's that? I've asked why they're excluding the workshop data. Because if you're asking at a workshop, surely that information has an input as well. Anyhow, 65 and 65A, that's the one with Vicky saying. Yep.
So what was the answer to your Official Information Act on those meetings?
That's in at the moment.
Like,
Yeah. They've got 20 days to respond.
The council was very good at is hiding behind the Privacy Act.
Yes. Yeah, and you also got to be real careful how you structure your questions as well.
Absolutely, I agree.
Like, you got to think like a lawyer. Like, I'm not a lawyer. That's the whole thing. But if I want an answer, I've got to make sure I ask the question 100% right. Because like I said, 3 attempts to actually get all that. For something that no information existed, and I can bring up another one actually, which I haven't got on here. 3 times I've asked a question, and 2 times nothing's existed. The 3rd time a whole ring of paperwork came through. So when you got minutes from reports and all this stuff, and it's all clearly written there, and you know who the CEO is now was actually the financial manager back at that stage there, and you look at it. So I've got to watch how I say names in there, because I'm not throwing people under the bus or anything like that, but I'm actually just telling you what's written in the reports. So, and like I said, it's all written there. So when you've got to ask 3 times for information that doesn't exist, oh, we found this. Is they actually trying to hide something, or are they just I'm just trying to be polite here, but obviously not looking hard enough in the right places. Another one this year was a whole lot of debacle about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now I went to a workshop about that, and they claimed they knew nothing about it. They ran a workshop on it. I got wind from a councillor saying, hey, there's a workshop going on. They've done it short notice. Nobody knows about it. So I heard through the grapevine. So I was the only one sitting there at 5 o'clock that night. I've got photos on my phone from it. This is where everyone was sitting at the draft annual plan. Because when you actually sit there, you can listen to other people's submissions as well. And there was a lot of pushback on that. And when you start looking at all the symbols and you start thinking, oh, what's all this about? Because it actually doesn't look too bad. And you hear all their fight back and you think, oh, that's all sweet, it's all good. But when you actually go to the workshop, you've got to remember, nobody knew how this came about, and they discussed it in the public meetings. All of a sudden, you've got a whole pile of stuff, including the workshop, going through the historical history of it. So yeah, it gets a bit strange. It's like, yeah, different land sometimes. Now, I've also put on there, oh yeah?
Yeah, the rates that they pay there on 770,000.
Yep.
Is that the actual rates that they pay now?
That's as of probably about 2 months ago.
Okay.
Grab that address if you want. Like I said, go onto the Waimea District Council website and put in rate finder. Put in your address and you'll see what your rates are.
Yeah.
And you'll also look at other people's rates as well.
Like if your place is worth less than what that is, like, you know, I'm just saying, if it's less than that, you pay more rates.
Yep.
How the hell does that work?
Same.
That one there, 132 Purcell Street, because that's sold for that will drive the other ones in the area up. So it brings up the median. So if you have 20 sales in that one area, in that one spot, then you've got more accurate data, so then they can all bring it up. But if they just value on one, but they've got something to base it off, then it's a lot easier for them to manipulate it slightly. I've got to watch how I use my words because I know what I'm trying to say and I'm not trying to be a crook about it. But just to say, you can sort of see how statistics get moved.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a feeling that they're land banking that because the property, whichever one, 65 or 65A, is land that runs through to Tuahiwi, and I think they're going to eventually develop it.
Well, from the Official Information Act request I got on that one, they said it's going to be for stormwater retention and they'll subdivide off the balance. So that's what they've given me as their long-term plan on it. So I don't know, unless you've got problems with stormwater in Wood End and it needs, you know, further capacity, I don't actually know why they've done it. Yep.
Yeah, so just that 132 Personal Street, I'm just looking at it now on maps. That's basically a car park for 28 cars next
Yep.
to the fire station.
Yep.
It used to be part of Bunnings.
Yep. Shortcut through from the Toyota car park through to Victoria Park. Now part of the planning on that is to make a walkway. So it's a temporary car park at the moment, but what they're going to do is they're going to make a walkway to make it look prettier to go between the regular Toyota car park and Victoria Park. Am I using the right terms here? So it's going to look prettier, but it will make it. But we'll subdivide off the balance and get some money back on it.
So as a part-time wannabe developer, I'm struggling. I couldn't get return of that.
That's what I want to hear, because I'm not going nuts, am I? No, great.
That's even worse. It's like anyone would how can you justify that? That's a lot of money on something
Not,
never going to see again.
but the thing is, you're only, well, as you can see, quite a few of them aren't. So the money we've got tied up on loans is not being offset in any way. Property's being managed, doesn't look like it. Now, without true engagement, ratepayers will be hijacked in an outrageous loan scheme, which is the LGFA. So basically, we've got no idea what's happening, and that's where the money's coming from to do it. And when they're signalling about paying off debt and reloading it again, it's never going to come down to that rate. That 180 should be on its way down. They should have got 180 million to start off with.
Isn't the buck stop at the top?
Good, so you're starting to work that out yourself.
Well, I've worked it out a long time ago.
Yep.
I had the opportunity of asking some workers, guys out in the field, who pays for your wages? Oh, the council, for the ratepayers? No, I don't think so.
It's about time people got re-educated, eh? I was at a meeting a while ago and that with fellas in charge of the signs and that. You know, there was obviously a bit of election sign tampering going on, and they were just taking them down. And I said, well, where's your policy? There's no right to reply on that. And I actually had the chance to say to him, I was actually with Vicky down the back there. I sort of said to him, I said, who pays your wages? He said, oh, council. I said, who pays the council? He said, the ratepayer. I said, what am I? He said, oh, we're not going to go there. Why? It's a simple statement. Now, the main thing is we changed the intent of the Waimea District Council if we educate enough people. So that's the whole point of what we're doing here. So it's not to go grab pitchforks and all that sort of rubbish and that and, you know, try to stir up stuff. But I just want you to start. Sounds like some of you are reading, but.
As a company, a company is not allowed to operate a debt-driven with intent. You've got to, what you do is you go back to the company and you bankrupt it. You say it's illegal for a company to continually operate in debt, and you're using, and that debt is our money.
Yep.
So then you go back to the company's commission or whatever it is, and you shut it down. You shut down the company.
Who's going to lose if they make it bankrupt?
What can they lose?
It'll be the CEO. He has to take the rap.
Well,
The debt stays
now,
there.
one question I've asked is that 900 properties the council. I actually asked how many properties does the council own? How many properties do we own? Council came back and said we own just under 900. My next question to them was to prove ownership. Because vesting and stewardship do not mean ownership. We've vested it with them to look after. You do a subdivision plan or anything like that, you've got a park. The park is invested with the council. Does that mean the council own it, or are they going to maintain it? So think about the whole ownership aspect. We think they own it because they make us believe they own it, but we pay for it. Like I said, you know, it's like me taking your car because I say I own it, but you paid for it. Does that make sense?
If they own it, if you register it, they own the car. You don't actually own the keeper of the car. So they own
Yeah,
it.
that's another whole thing to go down. Yeah. Because once I see you start looking at things, there's one wee tick box you do there, and basically by ticking that, you agree to pay everything. Well, say you don't tick it. Because as it says, it does not constitute ownership. But yeah, we won't go there because, like I said, once you start seeing little bits and pieces like this, it just opens up a whole can of worms, and I've got to concentrate on this one because your brain starts getting a bit tired. Right, so the main thing is just to raise public awareness, and you start coming to us because we've got the solutions, we're just telling you what the problem is. But the problem, I think, can be solved between all of us if we work together on it as well. But it has to come from numbers. So like I said, it's not pitchfork stuff, you know, it can all be done peacefully. But the intent is, we've just got to change the intent of the council back to where the boroughs used to be. The boroughs used to be, the money went in and it got used. And when you start looking at the old councils, how they were set up, there was a lot of stuff in there that was actually, yeah, kind of made sense. They actually had to ask you to borrow money, not this way.
Before you move on to that, off that page, the council run Waimak, and you're criticising council, and now you're talking about educating men and women. Those are the councils that you elect. So your beef is actually with the councils.
Yep, 100%. Now the thing is, what we do, now I actually ran for council last year, so I was actually born and raised, my father's here, lived in Woodend majority of my life. Now the thing is, I've watched the council change over these years. The things that did not make sense, because we do elect them in. But when you start seeing how they elect them and how local governments crept in, then you realise they don't actually have any representation power at all. The power's actually been switched around. So how can somebody represent me when he's got to sign a contract with the Crown? And I'm saying the Crown because we're a Commonwealth country, right? So everything's signed back to the Crown. How can you sign a contract to the Crown to represent the people and be bound by that contract? Then
are you holding your councillors, the elected councillors, to account?
Now that's an interesting point, because a lot of them, when you start realising what's happening, it actually takes quite a bit to come out and actually say it. Now a lot of the councillors, especially new ones, they've got no idea what's happening. Other ones have seen it happen, but they're not aware of the full implications. Like when I said about that community board meeting, you've got people there that are saying with unprecedented demand for food banks and businesses struggling. That is the councillor's job to actually pay attention to that and find out why they're struggling, why there's no food. But when you just veto a complete blanket and say, right, I don't care what you say here, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but if anyone's present at the meeting knows exactly what I'm talking about. I don't care what you say here, we're going to pass it through the council. So when you've got people saying we can't afford it, I don't care. We're going to veto it, it's going to go through the council regardless. Is that representing you? Now when you've got ones that want to break rank and they're also signed into a code of conduct, look what they tried doing with Ben Bell down south. The mayor was voted in. The council tried to get rid of him. What happened then?
The people stood behind him.
The people rallied behind him because they voted him in. So obviously they tried to use a corporate structure to remove that fella. What's happened now? The CEO's gone walking, isn't he? He's back again now. And there's a bit of an animosity over that too, so we'll have to see what happens, what plays out in that game as well. It's just a big game. That's the whole thing. We don't realise we've been played as well. Because the response actually comes back to us. But we've been led to believe this is what we have to do. They work for us. Their money comes from us. So if you had an employee like that, would you actually tolerate it? Now with those councillors, there's a few, like there's 4 up in Wellington that's ready to break rank. They're ready to say they can't afford all the rate increases and that. But they're tired. But at least they're getting more numbers. So if you got 4 of them, that was on the, I can't remember where I picked up that one, it was all on the news stations. If you got 4 that prepared to break rank, then what happens then? You get the public actually starting to know what's happening. So you no longer get into this ombudsman stuff. You've got to remember what they show on the news is only a tip of what they're actually saying. It's almost like it's got to the stage where it's embarrassment now. You know, we have to say something. So when you actually see that starting to show up, and the good thing is when you actually start getting people ringing you up and saying, hey, you've seen the news, you've seen this, you know that you're actually it's starting to get through to people. Because you can actually see between the smoke and the mirrors there. For them to say there's 8 councils basically under review, you know, for doing stuff behind closed doors, what else has been done behind closed doors? That's only the stuff they're letting us know.
Have you guys ever sat down with the councillor and explained it?
They've got the invitation to come. We're open and transparent. We're using their words, believe it or not.
So what does the councillor say to you when you tell them some of this stuff?
You can't ask questions in the meeting, but if you try to approach them, now I've got to watch what I say here because there are some people that are prepared to work, but I don't want to jeopardise anyone. You know, so say if we've got 6 that want to work for us, or 7, need to make sure we get that up to 9 or 10. But if there's only 1, you're wasting your time. But if you've got 1, then there's a chance that he's not going to talk anyhow. So like I said with Wellington, getting up to 4, that's probably a good changing point. A lot of people don't even realise they've got a problem until they actually point out what the problem is. And a lot of people won't even realise they've got that problem until it dawns on them. Because you'll start seeing stuff and you'll start working it out for yourself from that. You know, I'm not criticising anyone's intelligence or anything like that, but it's just that everyone's been brought up to believe this is the way it happens. We changed from a borough council to a district council, and basically everything went under a different structure. And that's where we become slightly screwed. There's just a couple more slides here.
Putting names down on paper and like signing a petition book. So if you get 10,000 names and take it to the council and say, okay, we disagree with your rate rises, will that work?
That's a start, because what you're doing is you're actually putting it out to the public now as well.
That's right.
You want to do it? No, because what I'm doing is, like I said, they already know me. They already know quite a few of us. And it's not shred being little asswipes either. You know, everything has been done nicely.
Can I just ask you and this other gentleman if I have your permission to put this video on social media? I've videoed the whole thing.
Absolutely.
I've not got anybody else's faces.
I've got nothing to hide.
So only
So
those
all
2
the
faces.
information-
Is
all the
everybody
information
okay
you
with
give to me.
that? Thank you.
If I go missing, you know what's happened. Put that on the post too.
It's already going on there.
Oh, crap. Yeah.
You need a trigger file. If you do go missing.
I've heard rumours somebody's got a panic button around their neck, but I won't say too much on that one. Counting common sense means planning and spending sustainably within your means. So basically, like I said, if you've got $10, you spend $10. If you want $12, you ask for your $2. But you don't just take $2. Now, I'm just about finished here. This is in their draft annual plan. This wasn't their draft, no, sorry, not the draft annual plan, their long-term plan. That's what they show on their rate increases are going to be per year. 100% happy with that? Right, good, because okay, I'll break it down. This is really good actually. Right, you've got smooth rates and unsmooth rates. So to try and make a sour pill easy to swallow, what we say is we've got an unsmooth rate here. See what happens? You're going to get hit with massive rate increases for the first 2 years and it's going to peter out. So what we're going to do is make it nice and easy for you to swallow. We're going to smooth it across the 10 years. Now, does everyone understand it? Everyone's happy with it?
Yeah.
You're all 100% happy with it?
No.
Put your hands up if you're happy with it.
No.
Put your hands up if you're not happy with it. Good. Right. Maths has changed a lot since I went to school, eh? That's what it is. See the red line there? Because I'll flick back to the other one. The only way that can work is that rate. I'm going to use this smooth one, which is their nice pill to swallow. The only way that can work is for that one, next year, that to be taken off and that to be put on. Next year, that one needs to be taken off and that one put on. Does that make sense? So your $1,000 has rates put on it. Next year it had $1,000 plus the rates put on it. But instead what they do is they compound it. Now, the easiest way to prove that for yourself is look at your rate bills for the last 2 or 3 years, and you'll be able to track that out. And that's only based on theirs, not the ECAT portion as well. Now, how long can you keep on going at that rate?
It's unsustainable, and they plan it to be that way.
And that's why we're trying to fund 180 million at that point. So you try working out 300 to 320 million by the time we get 2030 or 2032. Now, just because I get a bit bored sometimes, I overlaid these. That's the minimum wage increase, percentage per year. That's the yellow line. And we've got the inflation per rate period. They also do the same trick. This one here is what they show you the inflation is. Like this year, say we're at 6%. Okay, sounds bad. It's only 6%. But that's also 6% on last year's 5%. And the year before is 6%. So when you start looking at the other line there, see what's happening with the minimum wage? They're both tracking away. If they're yachting, they're on different courses. So yeah, just let that one sink in. So basically, they're actually telling you, but nobody actually understands it. Does that make sense? Because they give it to you, it looks like a nice picture, you take it for granted. And it's going to get worse. Right, questions, any left?